Welcome to Washoe Life, our podcast where we interview interesting people who are making a difference right here in our community. I'm Nancy Lewinhagen.
And I'm Bethany Drysdale, and our guest today recently moved here for a very, very exciting job. And that seems to be the trend, right? It seems like a lot of people end up in Washoe County for a job.
We certainly did. How about you?
Me too.
Okay, how long? When did you move here?
Oh gosh, 2006 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah, for a job. I wanted to work for the RTJ. They didn't hire me,
Oh,
but
so Bethany was a print reporter.
yes, I was
That's
a
right.
reporter.
Yeah.
But moved here to go into the PR field and just loved it. It was a strange move because I grew up on the north coast of California, and you're from California. You know, like
Yes.
big difference from redwood trees to sagebrush.
Yes. Very different.
Yes. So that's how we got here.
Did you have kids already?
No, I've got 4 kids. Newly married, so my husband actually had the job first here, and so he was kind of commuting from California to here, and so
All right.
I moved.
We moved here 21 years ago. Kids were little. We moved here for my husband's business, but we moved here from Illinois. So one thing that I remember about moving here, it had been an exceptionally brutal summer in Illinois with tornadoes. That's what we have back in the Midwest for you Californians.
Glad
No,
you
thank
don't.
you.
Yeah, yes, I know. I mean, it's all what you're used to, right? So the one thing that I remember that was so funny, our son was 5, and we would go to houses, and every time we'd go to a house, where's the basement? Where's the basement? Well, there's no basements here because of, I mean, there's walkouts, but like we had true basements in the Midwest. Where are we going to go when there's a tornado? And I'd have to keep telling him, honey, we don't have tornadoes in northern Nevada. But we do have wildfires.
We do have wildfires.
That's a seg into who our guest is today, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, Chief Rick Edwards, you are new here to the area from Stockton, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. And you are the new fire chief for Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District.
I am.
So welcome. We're
So
excited.
glad you're here. And
Thank you
thanks
for having me.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
We're going to learn more about you today.
Yes. So how long were you in Stockton?
So I was in Stockton for about 25 and a half years, and the last 5.5 of that as their fire chief.
Okay. So moving here is a big change. Central,
Big change.
is that considered Central Valley kind of Stockton?
Yes.
Fresno, kind of Modesto, right? Isn't that in there?
Yeah.
Yep. Just
Any-
south of Sacramento.
Okay. Everything south of Sacramento is like Southern California to me.
Okay.
All right. She's the Northern California.
Yes.
I'm picking up on that.
Yeah. So anyway, but it is a big change. Had you scoped out this area before, or the job was just too good to pass up? You had to go for it.
All the above.
All the above?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
We'd vacationed up in this area, the Tahoe area, Incline, for decades. Beautiful. We loved the outdoors. We loved to hike and bike and ski. Our winters, we'd spend a lot of time in Tahoe area at the ski resorts and so forth. So I was very familiar with the general area. And then I'd been watching from afar what was going on in the region and potential job opportunities. I knew I was getting close to retiring out of California. I still have a lot of gas in my tank and a lot of passion for the fire service. So I was thinking about what's the next step for me? What do I want to do? I'm a very active person. I don't want to sit at home and, I think it's going to be very expensive every day going skiing or hiking or projects around the house. So I was going to have a job as we have kids that are still in college. And so we looked back at that and I thought, love to continue to work in the fire service. I still have a tremendous amount of energy and passion for the fire service. And so I'd been watching different areas and I'd been following Chief Moore for a long time out of Truckee Meadows. And I thought, he'd been there with the organization for, I think, almost 13, 14 years. Then it was coming up. I was like, he's got to be getting close to retirement. I wonder what that looks like. And then as I was getting close to retirement, everything just seemed to align. And he had announced his retirement, I believe, in January. The recruitment process started, I believe, in March or April. And then went through that hiring process in May. And the timing couldn't have been any better as I retired from the city of Stockton the same day I started here in Truckee Meadows.
Really?
Wow.
Okay. What's the word for that? Kismet? Or
Yes.
It's just
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was amazing. The timing and everything couldn't have been any better. I mean, everything just worked out perfectly. And I feel so blessed to get to call Washoe County home now. I look out my window and I see the beautiful Slide Mountain and Mount Rose, and I get, oh, this is incredible. And the weather, oh,
It's a
I
great
pinch
place.
myself sometimes, like, is this real? And then add to that, the fire district is incredible. We have just tremendous amount of experience and um, selfless first responders that are well trained, do an incredible job for our community. And I'm so proud to get to lead this organization.
I want to go back to Chief Edwards' first day. Okay.
It was a doozy.
The region gave you a nice little gift on your first day. Why don't we'll let you tell us what happened?
They did. So my first day was kind of trial by fire, almost literally. Started the day off 2 hours in with my first Board of Fire Commissioners meeting. And so the team had really helped prepare me for that. The Board of Fire Commissioners also got me all teed up to be successful for that first meeting. And no sooner did that meeting end, I go back to the office and start figuring out how to get into email and then start talking with folks. And someone comes into the office. I think it was my executive assistant comes in and says, "Hey, do you know there's a fire down the street?" And I don't think much about it. I come from an agency that was very busy, a lot of fires. And I think, oh, okay, well, thank you. And someone else came back a couple of minutes later and said, "Hey, no, you should probably go look outside. It's a pretty good sized fire." And I look out to the south, and that entire mountain, the hillside was on fire. Pretty incredible,
It
the Barren Fire.
Barren Fire. That's the
Yes.
name of
was,
it.
yeah. That was incredible. It was incredible to watch because it was so kind of nestled in the city, really. And then being so close to your headquarters was like, really could not make this up at
You
all.
couldn't. It was incredible, and I kept watching the Reno city of Reno fire engines come by, and then I'd start seeing the Truckee Meadows. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, this is getting a lot bigger. There's a lot of apparatus there, and went out and visited the site and the firefighters at the command post, and they had a good grasp on it and what was going on, and it was going to burn down into some roads and areas and it kind of burn itself out. But what we were really thankful for is that afternoon we had a pretty good thunderstorm move through the area, and it all about knocked it out. Just an incredible amount of rain, and it just took all the steam out of that fire. And very thankful that it made it a lot easier for our crews to overhaul and clean that up and get back into service. But just the peace of mind for our community members too, to as a reminder of, hey, we live with fire every day in this
I
region.
do. I do remember that because it was all kind of happened through the afternoon with Washoe 311 as we were watching. And I thought, oh, thank you, Mother Nature.
Yes,
Yeah.
so grateful for that.
She did us a favor. Well, okay. So that was your first day, Board of Fire Commission meeting, wildfire at your back door. Besides that, how's it been since you started?
It's been incredible. Just getting to know the community, getting to know all of our firefighters and visit all our firehouses. It's pretty interesting how spread out this district is. I came from a fairly large metropolitan fire department, but we covered an area of only 100 square miles. And here we cover almost 1,000 square miles. And as you can imagine, 10 times the size. The travel distance between firehouses and everything is very different. And how we tackle fires is much different because we don't have resources right on top of each other as well. So our crews have to be highly trained and know that they're by themselves for quite a while until additional resources arrive.
And I would imagine the fires we have here are different. We've got that WUI, that wildland interface, um, and so many wildfires that could encroach into the city. But I would imagine in Stockton, it's more maybe structure fire, that sort of thing. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. Down the hill, it was much more of the structure of the building fires. We would have vegetation fires, but typically just grass fires that would burn to the next road or
Mhm.
couple 50 to 100 acres or something. They would go out and we'd be done within an hour. Where here, we have, wildfires that go on for days sometimes. And so much different. The risk much higher here, obviously, for wildfires and just how close our homes are built into the forest and the wildland urban interface is incredible. So much more emphasis on prevention and fuels mitigation and so forth to make sure that we have every opportunity to catch that fire quickly before it does a lot of damage.
Yeah. You mentioned you have 2 kids in college. So just you and your wife moved here.
correct.
Okay. Has everybody come to visit yet and see the new
They
dig?
have
Yeah.
actually, my wife and I have 4 kids total. So she had 2 when we got married, and they're 32 and 30 now. So they're off the payroll.
Yeah.
They're living their best lives.
Yeah.
But they have both been up to visit, and we're thankful for that. They live just down in El Dorado County, so still close
Yeah.
nearby, so they can come by anytime. And then the 2 youngest, Sophia's a junior at Chico State, and McKenna is a freshman at San Diego State. And so they both have been up, set up their rooms, everything, so when they come home for winter break or spring break, they have their place all set up and ready for them. But yeah, they're pretty excited about this area as well because they love to ski and snowboard. So
It's perfect for that.
yes,
The woo was Chico.
Chico.
Chica State,
She goes.
a Wildcat.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Fun place. So was it hard to convince your wife and even your kids being out of the house, still hard to convince them to come here, or was it's just everybody's?
No, they were pretty excited about it. The kids especially because they're going to be off at school most of the time, so they had their friends there,
Yeah.
and they'd already kind of committed to going to school. So this was new, but they were like, "Yeah, this is great." And my wife was like, "Yeah, I'm totally excited to come up and look at something new and get to do something and experience a new community." We'd lived in the Sacramento region for pretty much our entire life.
That's what I was going to ask. I thought most of your career was over there, right?
It was, yeah. So almost a 30-year career in the fire service. It was all in the Sacramento region in Stockton.
So what was one of the biggest, we'll talk a little bit about the Davis fire, which we're coming up in about a year on. What experiences for you in Stockton? I'm sure you guys had many.
One everybody talks about, or
Yeah.
We've had a lot throughout my career. I think one of the most memorable, and I think the one that's affected me the most was a very tragic incident that we had in the city of Stockton as their fire chief on January 31st of 2022. We lost Fire Captain Max Fortuna.
wow.
And Max and I were super close. We actually came on together in Stockton back in 2000. And academy mates, we worked together throughout most of our career on the same shift, even the same firehouse for a long time. And sadly, he was shot and killed at a commercial warehouse fire
Wow.
that morning. And just the worst day of my professional career, or maybe even my entire life to this point. And losing someone we were so close, and then having to lead that organization through the aftermath of that as well, and then the subsequent trial and so forth, just horrific. And so I always think of Max. It's very special to me, and he'll always have a place in my heart. Um, and it's something that has also really brought more attention for me as a fire chief about mental health and wellness in the fire service.
I can't imagine. I am so sorry. That is I just can't imagine how that day was for you. And then, then that was going to be my next question. Did that change the way you lead?
It did, absolutely. And how we address mental health and wellness in the fire service. And up to that point, most fire service organizations, we had peer support and employee assistant programs and so forth, but nobody would really ever talk about those in the firehouse. And as luck would have it, that exact same day that happened was the first day we had a new contractor coming in to provide mental health services for the organization through an anonymous type process where they could just call. No one would ever know that they spoke to a clinician, and then we would just get invoiced for however many calls they received. And it was really an eye-opening opportunity for folks to seek out those services. This person's team had come up to visit us that morning to go around and just to start building relationships amongst the firehouses. And just as luck would have it, she was there at 7:00. And Max was shot at 5:00 that morning. And so she really helped us to navigate that. But even more than that, really helped to change the dialogue in the firehouse to where after a while, people were comfortable talking with her and so forth, that they would share those experiences openly around the kitchen table. And no one used to ever speak about their feelings to that level. And just the sense of vulnerability that people had because of the impact of this one event, I think really made it okay for people to openly talk about their feelings and their wellness. And it was, I think the message was that it was okay not to be okay. And it really kind of changed that entire culture.
Wow, I just can't imagine the impact.
No.
Oh,
Yes.
And for men and women in firefighting, you have to be tough in the job. I imagine to do the job, you have to be tough. You have to be able to compartmentalize, I'm fighting this fire, I'm saving these lives right here, and I'll get to, the emotional stuff later. And so
Absolutely.
that's got to be I would imagine a hard shift to make in the culture, but
It is. Our firefighters see horrific things every day, and they carry that with them. And I think it's really important that we start to look at mental health and wellness, injuries or post-traumatic stress, no different than we do any other type of injury, musculoskeletal, because firefighters have had back injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries forever, and they would openly talk about who their physician is, who's their surgeon, who's helping them get healed up to come back to work. But the mental health stuff we carry from day one on the job all the way through retirement and beyond retirement. But there's very little talked about of which clinician are they using and how are they, how are they coping with it. And so this is really, I think, a big change culturally for the entire fire service right now.
it's something you're gonna continue with Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a top priority of mine.
and something else we've heard you talk about is leadership, mentorship. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, leadership, mentorship are very important. It's I think as a leader, it's important to have that vision and trust of those that you work with, being approachable, and then the mentorship about that is growing those around you to continue to move the organization forward. And a huge supporter of that as well as someone coming from the outside. Um, Always trying to make sure that in the future we have people that are ready and willing and prepared to step into these leadership roles within the organization. And I think every fire service organization has incredible people that are selfless, that have all the tools to be incredible leaders. And it's just we need to build those skills and bring them out of them. And the fire service is very unique in that we really follow that leadership fellowship model, because as you come into the organization at the ground floor, you're mentored by your drivers, your engineers, your captains. As you move up in the organization, you're mentored by that group above you and those around you to help you be successful. And so you have those opportunities to continually grow, to take on those responsibilities to prepare you for that next role.
And I'm as I'm listening, I know we started with, conversations about wildfire, which is so important, but really there's a lot of I forget the statistic, but majority of your calls are not wildfire.
No, no, most of our calls actually are EMS in nature. Probably 75% or so are EMS.
And oh, by the way, be there when we do have a wildfire.
Right.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing is that the fire department isn't just about fires anymore. We're an all risk, all hazard organization. So anything you call 911 for that doesn't need law enforcement, we're the ones that are going to show up and take care of your emergency.
It's a lot of pressure, Chief Edwards.
You've mentioned preparedness and making sure that people are ready to kind of take care of themselves in the case of a fire or other emergency. We were talking before the show where we grew up and like what you would do for the local dangers there. In earthquake country, you didn't put anything glass on a shelf that wasn't secured. You either
Right.
have unsecured bookshelves. Um, Never occurred to me to have a go bag for a fire because we didn't have fires. But so what is the education that Truckee Meadows works on for residents here to be prepared and not wait for the fire department to show up at your door?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we have to be prepared because fires can happen any time of year here, especially. And we've seen some of our larger fires this time of year, all the way up until to the winter, until we get significant rain or snowfall. And so that preparedness is so important because there's only so many firefighters, there's only so many firehouses, and some of the fires we see are so big and they grow so fast. There's not enough firefighters to get to every house to make sure people are getting out. So, one of the biggest messages we really try to convey is that when we issue evacuation notices or warnings, make sure that you're prepared to go and heed that warning, because if you don't, then we can't suppress the fire. Now we have to change into life safety mode and make sure that we make sure everyone is out of the path of that fire. And so that fire burns uncontrolled as we're evacuating people and taking care of the life safety aspect. And so we really emphasize that through our social media, through educational campaigns, through public outreach, community meetings, and so forth about the preparedness, having your go bag, having your medications, your list of medications, your bank account information, even your pets, whatever your pets may need, to make sure you have all that, family photos, everything all packaged up so that in a moment's notice, you can just put that in the car, grab your pets, your kids, and head out. And we really emphasize people, if they think they're even under a warning, that it's probably a good idea to have all that together, sit in the car ready to go. And so you can watch the perimeter maps when the evacuation notices or the mandatory evacuations change, that you're already ready to get out. And if you have the opportunity to leave even before that, even better, because so many of our roadways are so narrow, and it's tough for people to get out if they all leave at the same time. And we work closely with the county's emergency management team, our law enforcement partners, the sheriff's office, to really help coordinate those evacuations. But there's only so much road space and so many cars that they can really pack that, jam that up, and it's tough to get everyone out sometimes.
I hear that so often. My neighborhood is the ones that, and I'm not talking about mine specifically, but everyone, and we all live in unique neighborhoods that you can go incline, you can go up to, you name the neighborhood, Washoe Valley. We've had fires everywhere. I think we don't realize that we're just all at that risk and practice. A lot of people probably need to know a number of ways to get out of their neighborhood, right?
That's a great point, because so many of us are creatures of habit.
Mhm.
We always like to go and come and go the same exact way. It's really important to know other ways out of your neighborhood or bypass ways to get out, because sometimes your exit path that you come and go all the time may be cut off by fire. There may not, or it's backed up because of the traffic backlog in there and traffic jams. So knowing multiple ways to get in and out of your areas is so important.
We have a fire road, by the way, down by and our HOA told us during fire you can access this. I'm like, I showed my husband. I'm like, look at this fire road, because it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's great homework for all the listeners out there today is to go back and think about how they come and go within their own neighborhoods and think about secondary access and egress points.
Is there something that you wish people knew that could make your job easier, or make responders' jobs easier? Like, oh, for the love of God, please quit leaving your sprinkler on, or something. Like, what's something that you would tell people? Just do this one thing to make our jobs easier.
Yeah, that I think that's a good one too. The sprinklers. I think that the biggest message, if we can really convey, is that when you are under a mandatory evacuation, please leave. Because we have to commit resources when that fire is coming to your residence. If we know you're there, we can access you. We're going to get you out. But when we do that, we're not suppressing the fire, and that fire is going to continue to grow. Whereas if we know everybody's out of a certain neighborhood, we can commit all of our resources towards actually fighting the fire. But when they're not, life safety is number one for us. That's our first priority always. And so the possessions, the environment, the forest, everything, all that will grow back. We'll rebuild homes. We can't replace life. And so if there's one message out there, if people can hear this, please, if you're under a mandatory evacuation or even evacuation warning, if you have the ability to leave and get out of the area, please do so.
Remember sitting at that community meeting, Bethany, for the Davis fire when things, we were 4 or 5 days in. I'm not going to remember exact, but the incident management team gathered everyone in the school.
Yeah.
Again, there I go with details, but that was the message, because the winds were forecasted to start to blow. Now, as it turned out, it didn't happen, but that thought is just so terrifying.
Yeah. And I understand when people, want to save their own castle. This is my home, this is my castle. Or, hey, I'm doing you a favor. I'm going to turn the hose on my own house so you don't have to, so you can go fight, another house. But that's not helpful.
It's not. And our firefighters have hundreds and hundreds of hours of training to be able to fight these type of fires. And for someone to think that, oh, I'm just going to take my garden hose and I'm going to protect my home, while it sounds good, it doesn't normally work out very well for them.
Yeah.
And then we're having to go into that rescue mode and having to evacuate them, put them in our fire engines, and drive them out of the area, usually under just extreme conditions.
All right. Well, that's a good message. It's a good reminder, Chief Edwards. We appreciate that. As you're getting out and about, like you said, 1,000 square miles. That's
I
a
think so,
big
yes.
district. Tell us about I think you have a 6-month plan that you've been implementing.
I do. So part of my initial steps of coming in as new fire chief was just to get out into all the firehouses, and just part of a listing tour. Here, tell me what's great about the organization, what our opportunities are, get to know our members, which was great. And I compiled all that information into a 180-day plan, saying these are the priorities that we need to focus on over the next 6 months. Some of these are going to take a little bit longer than 6 months, but it's a really good guiding document for us as an organization and really kind of cache that vision so everyone in the organization knows what's a priority for us and where we're going into the future. And then once I compiled that, I went back out to all the firehouses on all the shifts, met with all the administrative staff, all of our divisions, and shared that plan back out, and including with our Board of Fire Commissioners as well. And really, the three tenets of that plan focus on our finances. They focus on communications, and then they also focus on, and dispatch. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Dispatch is a big one, and that's been a big topic regionally about, how to get the fastest response and work with the various jurisdictions and making sure. I hear firefighters say it all the time, and at fire board meetings, doesn't matter whose logo is on the side of a truck,
Right.
just
That's it.
be there.
Yes, and I think that's so important that nobody cares what it says on the fire engine or our patches or anything else. They just want help.
Yeah.
And so each one of those we're really doing a deep dive into. And under finances, we're no different than any of the other government agencies here in the county. We're all struggling and facing structural deficits within our budget. So trying to tighten up our finances a little bit so we can live better within our means for the extended future. And then under dispatch is trying to figure out how do we not duplicate so many services here, and so that we can be more efficient in how we deliver service, making sure that we get the most appropriate resource to that emergency in a timely fashion. And then communications is also another big one. And that also goes towards mentorship, building the next generation of fire service leaders within the organization and breaking down silos, because so often our different divisions don't speak to each other unless they have overlapping responsibilities. And so some people may not know what all the other divisions do and so forth, or have that message communicated throughout the organization. So through this plan, we're also getting out, all the division leaders are working out into the firehouses to kind of share that information so that the entire organization knows what we're doing at any one time, what the big projects are, and really how we're just going to move the organization forward.
I'm going to go lighter for a second. When they know you're coming, did they make you a good dinner?
I've had a lot of invitations to dinner. Yeah, they're a very welcoming bunch, and it's great. Yeah, it's some great cooks out there too.
That's what I
Yeah.
was hoping to hear.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard that. I've heard that
Yeah.
firefighters know how to cook.
Yes.
You guys have a great website, TMFPD. I know there's resources there for people to get. And living with fire, we do have a lot of resources in our community.
Yeah, we really do. So communication, you're right. That's coming from a couple of communicators. But that's key. So what we all really want to know: Mount Rose or Palisades or North Star? Where are you skiing this winter?
I'm looking forward to Mount Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the closest, so I thought, you know what, I'll give this a shot. I've never skied there before,
Oh,
so
that's good.
very exciting.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
that's
not much of a skier, but it's a good resort. Well, thank you so much for joining us and introducing yourself to our listeners, our viewers. We're really excited to have you in Washoe County.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here, and look forward to working with everybody in the county.
Well, we're glad to have you, Chief Edwards. Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, thank you for watching, listening, and enjoy your Washoe life. We'll see you back here.